In the late 1970s, the Hmong community in St. Paul, Minnesota, was still finding its footing in a new land, grappling with the disorientation of resettlement and the preservation of their traditions. Among the many challenges faced by the community was the unfamiliarity with the American systems, including the process of dealing with death. Thus, the construction of a small Hmong funeral home on the edge of the city's west side was a blessing, a place where the community could honor their dead according to their ancient customs. The funeral home was a modest, unassuming building with a solemn air that belied the vibrant culture it served. It was painted in muted colors, with traditional Hmong symbols and art adorning the walls. Inside, the scent of incense was almost overpowering, and the flickering of candles cast eerie shadows across the room. The night of the death ceremony for Xiong Thao, a respected elder who had recently passed away, was thick with an oppressive fog that clung to the streets of St. Paul. His family, along with other members of the Hmong community, gathered to perform the rituals that would guide his spirit to the afterlife. They chanted and offered prayers, their voices a mournful chorus, as they prepared for the final rites. Unbeknownst to the mourners, a chilling change was taking place. As the clock struck midnight and the ceremony reached its climax, a low, unnatural hum began to resonate through the funeral home. The mourners, already exhausted from the emotional weight of the ceremony, barely noticed at first, attributing it to the drafty building or their own weary minds. But then came a sound that pierced the night, a soft, rhythmic thumping, like a heartbeat. The mourners fell silent, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. They turned towards the body of Xiong Thao, which lay peacefully in the center of the room, surrounded by flowers and candles. The thumping grew louder, echoing through the walls and floor. Suddenly, the room was plunged into darkness. The candles flickered and went out, leaving only the faint light of the moon to illuminate the space through the grimy windows. A cold wind swept through the room, making the mourners shiver despite their warm clothing. In the eerie silence, the unmistakable sound of a coffin lid moving echoed through the room. Gasps of terror filled the air as the lid creaked open, revealing Xiong Tao's face, still, but with an unsettlingly serene expression. The thumping sound was now a steady, deliberate rhythm, and then, to the horror of everyone present, Xiong Tao's eyes slowly opened. The once lifeless body of Xiong Tao sat up, its movements unnaturally slow and deliberate. The mourners stumbled back, their faces pale with terror. The room was filled with an overpowering sense of dread as Xiong Tao, now a spectral figure, began to speak in a voice that was not quite his own, a voice filled with sorrow and anguish, a voice that seemed to come from another realm. "I am not ready," Xiong Tao's voice whispered, trembling and echoing with a hollow resonance. "The spirits are restless. The veil between worlds is torn." Panic erupted. Families scrambled to gather their loved ones, fleeing the building as if pursued by unseen forces. The elder's family, desperate to understand the inexplicable, tried to perform additional rituals, but their fear and confusion made their efforts clumsy and ineffective. The temperature in the room dropped sharply, and an oppressive darkness seemed to press in from all sides. The candles that had been extinguished suddenly flared back to life, casting a flickering, ghostly light over Xiong Tao's reanimated figure. The once peaceful expression on his face was now twisted into something otherworldly, an eerie mixture of sadness and malevolence. As the clock approached 2 a.m., the thumping ceased, and the figure of Xiong Tao slumped back down into the coffin. The candles flickered out once more, and a deep silence settled over the room. The mourners, still in shock, did not dare to approach the coffin. They waited, huddled together in fear, until the first light of dawn began to break through the fog. When the sun finally rose, the funeral home was eerily quiet. The figure of Xiong Tao remained still in his coffin, his eyes closed once more. The mourners, still trembling, decided to leave immediately. The strange events of the night had left them disoriented and terrified. The community decided to close the funeral home shortly after, unable to reconcile the horrifying experience with their traditions. The building fell into disrepair, its windows boarded up, and the doors locked tight. Over time, it became an abandoned relic, whispered about in the community but rarely spoken of directly. Local legends grew around the now-deserted funeral home. People said that on foggy nights, when the moon was high and the air was still, you could sometimes hear the faint thumping of a heartbeat emanating from within. Some claimed to see shadows moving behind the boarded windows, and others spoke of feeling a cold, spectral presence if they ventured too close. The Hmong funeral home in St. Paul, once a place of solace and tradition, remained a somber reminder of the night the veil between worlds had been torn. The haunting echoes of that night served as a warning to all who dared to listen, a chilling testament to the mysteries that lay beyond the realm of the living.